Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Sid. Great to be with you.
Great. Before we officially start, I have to say I've been thinking about something you said during our intro chat. You said life is often shaped by the question asked of us and whether we answer yes or no. And that struck me, to be honest with you, because when I look at your journey, Phil, from hockey to Air Force to MIT, China, startups, and now SimpliFiber, it feels like one bold yes after another.
Yeah, that's right. As we talked about before, and so the audience knows, I feel like we're all posed with a lot of different questions throughout our lives. And the journeys we all take have a lot to do with what we say yes to. And so, of course, also the journeys we take have a lot to do with our interests as well. But yeah, back to what you were saying, it's just I feel like I'm really not so different than anyone else. I've just said yes to a lot of interesting things. And I think that's where this like term lucky comes in as well. It's like yeah, I guess you get lucky every once in a while, but luck is very much a product of what you say yes to and the work you put in after you say yes. And that's how I feel. So saying yes to a lot of interesting things has led to an exciting life, I think.
And today I want to understand what those yeses cost you, what they taught you, and why you believe the future of manufacturing has to be built differently. This should be a fascinating conversation. Looking forward to it.
Same here. I'm really excited, Sid.
The following is a conversation with Phil Cohen, co-founder and CEO of SimpliFiber, US Air Force veteran, MIT Sloan MBA serial entrepreneur, and former semi-professional hockey player. This is Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast, and I'm your entrepreneurship, advanced manufacturing, performance-first sustainability, China, fatherhood, and purpose to uncover genuine stories and insights that truly matter. Thank you so much for tuning in, subscribing, and supporting the show. Your support and financial contributions helps us bring authentic voices, real stories, and conversations that go beyond the game. If you would like to support the show, please check the episode description for more. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Sid.
It's great to have you here. When we spoke again during our intro chat, I thought this episode might be mainly about advanced materials, technology, or sustainability. But very quickly I realized that there is a much bigger story here. So your path moves through sport, military service, MIT, China, venture-backed companies, manufacturing, and now becoming a father for the first time. So before we talk about SimpliFiber, cellulose fibers, and future of manufacturing, I want to start with the human story. When you look back, Phil, at your life so far, what is the thread that connects all these different chapters?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really don't look back at my life that often. It's like you'll have these wins or these losses in your life, and it's all just a part of your overall story. But I don't, a lot of people, and maybe someone a bit more introspective than I am, would like look back and reflect on those moments. And every once in a while I do, but generally speaking, I just keep moving forward. I would say though, as I think back on my life, maybe the thread that connects everything together is what we started this conversation with, which is basically being open to trying new things, to go in sometimes unique and difficult directions. I think that's very important. And I see that as sort of a thread that interweaves everything in my past. And I think a good example of that is when I was getting ready to leave the military and go to MIT Sloan School of Management full time. That was a very conscious decision. I remember the reason I chose MIT Sloan School of Management is because I wanted a very difficult business school experience, and that is not something that was um, unique to that situation. I've sort of always looked for experiences that are difficult and challenging, and I think that may be one of the threads that, again, interweaves a bunch of the experience I've lived.
So when we were talking earlier, you said yes so many times for so many things. Which yes changed your life the most?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, currently I'm in a big yes. This journey I've been on for the past 4+ years with my business partner, Maria Incher Orang, um, an amazing friend of mine has led us into new experiences developing SimpliFiber. I think it was very consequential because at the time, um, I was in effect divesting from China. It was COVID at the time when Maria and I had met, and I knew that it was going to be hard to get back to China with regard to everything going on in the world in 2020, and I was looking for new partnerships and essentially new ways to say yes if we continue down that theme. And Maria was living in Brooklyn, New York at the time. I was living in Nashville, Tennessee. And I mean, it was a big decision to basically converge on Raleigh, North Carolina, which is where we are located right now. So big life-changing decision. But I mean, when I'm thinking about the answer to that question, I'm like, wow, there are so many things I've said yes to that have been completely consequential to my life. So that's just like the tip of the iceberg. I hope people don't get the wrong impression. I say no a lot as well. I've read a lot of books where negotiations start with the word no and what have you, and I agree with that as well. So I mean, there there are a lot of things that come my way that unfortunately I have to turn down for one reason or another. But I'd say, my point in the yes conversation is I think a lot of people are given very interesting questions. I'm not sure if that's daily, maybe it's weekly, maybe monthly, maybe yearly. And so many people
Right.
don't even understand um, the gravity of those questions. And if they were to say yes to something that may be very interesting, they could really turn their life around, or they could take their life down an interesting and unique path. And you know, I I have a lot of very productive friends, but I have a lot of friends too who are always saying, "Hey, listen, I wish my life were more interesting. I wish I were a more interesting person," or something like that. And I say, you're probably missing a lot of opportunities that are right under your nose, and you have to, as my uncle always used to say, he's a professional photographer in Los Angeles. He said, "The most important thing you need to do in life is to pay attention." He Everywhere he goes, he walks around with a physical camera, not just an iPhone, a physical camera, and he'll see a bug crawling down the street and he'll stop on the streets of Los Angeles and he'll take a picture and photograph the bug. And I said, "Hey, Ed, tell me what you're
Wow.
doing. What goes through your mind when you're doing this?" And he goes, "Phil, the biggest thing I can tell you is to pay attention. Always pay attention." And I really believe that. And that's really
Wow.
behind, you know,
Nice.
making sure that you understand the gravity and the opportunity behind these questions that are passed along to each and every one of us. Again, may not be every day, but certainly on a monthly, yearly basis, you're going to have a lot of interesting questions to answer. And I think a lot of people are spring loaded just to say no to everything. They're very comfortable in their
Yeah.
lives. They may complain that they don't have the most interesting life, but they're generally comfortable. And to me, it's like, you gotta you gotta enjoy getting uncomfortable to live a productive and interesting life. At least that's my view of things.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. And Phil, when you say yes to something difficult, what do you need to trust first? Yourself, the people around you, or the mission?
Yeah, that's really great. I love that, Sid. I think most of it is trust in yourself. If you don't have confidence in yourself that you'll be able to navigate these, sometimes very challenging and uncommon circumstances you may encounter after going in a certain direction, then you're probably not even going to take the plunge and say yes. So I think like I've done over the years a lot of work on myself to ensure that I have the confidence needed to basically face anything that's thrown at me. And I like to say that I tell my friends and work colleagues and what have you, it's like if the world is ending, I'm probably a pretty good guy to have on your team. So rightfully or wrongfully, that's the level of confidence I have. Yeah.
I love your mindset, man. I think for you, Phil, a part of that story includes sport and competition and your time in the army, I guess.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those things were really interesting experiences for me, and certainly I'd say from the earliest of ages, I was a very serious hockey player. I call that sort of the first part of my life, I'd say. That was into my college years. I ended up playing Division I college at the U.S. Air Force Academy, though I got a bad back injury and unfortunately had to hang up the skates. But yeah, I think my initial thoughts on leadership were formed on the ice rink, really, and how to work in a team, what a good team looks like, how to lead a team. All of these things were very important in my upbringing and my initial leadership theory. And then, of course, you know, moving to the U.S. Air Force Academy after my time in the USHL and AWHL, um, that solidified a lot of my thoughts on leadership. And then moving from the U.S. Air Force Academy, 4 years there, to active duty military, I was 7 years a U.S. military officer. I was able to practice a lot of the theories I had conjured up in the active duty Air Force, leading hundreds and hundreds of people. I'm very humbled to say that. I worked with some of the most amazing men and women during my time in uniform, both in the U.S. and abroad, in the Persian Gulf and Afghanistan. And yeah, I mean, all of that was very informative on, you know, how I would one day basically become an entrepreneur, put together teams, lead those teams, etc. So really cool experiences. And yeah, back to the like saying yes to opportunities. I mean, just as a little anecdote, I was playing full-time hockey in Helena, Montana at the time. And I was a recruited athlete, recruited by a bunch of schools, but two of which were the U.S. Air Force Academy and West Point. And I remember, they flew me out to see the schools. And I remember being very impressed by the operation, but I came back and I told my mom, I'm not sure I could ever see myself doing this. And that was one of those moments. Maybe that was one of the big consequential moments in my life, because it would have been sort of easier to take a more traditional college pathway as opposed to going to one of the three U.S. service academies: Air Force Academy, West Point, or Annapolis. But I, after reflecting on things, I was like, this is potentially a life-changing moment where I could really lean into this. I could get this amazing leadership experience, and I could do something do something I'm really proud of in this world. And so I've sort of been on that path ever since, but that was certainly one of those consequential moments.
Right, right. You spoke about leadership lessons from hockey. Did hockey teach you more through winning or losing, or both?
Maybe a little of both. Like I was on a couple championship teams when I was a lot younger for youth hockey. Actually, my Philadelphia Little Flyers, they were called. Like, Philadelphia Flyers are the big NHL team. Well, we had two teams in the Philadelphia area which were called AAA teams for youth hockey. One was called the Philadelphia Little Flyers, the other Philadelphia Junior Flyers. I played on both teams, and they both sort of battled always to be the number one in the Philadelphia area. And those teams were both, especially Philadelphia Little Flyers at the time. My team was really a championship team. As I got into the full-time hockey realm, I had some really great teams, but certainly you win a lot, you lose a lot, and I'd say I learned from both.
Right.
I think maybe the easy answer would be that you'd learn more from losing, but
Absolutely.
I think when you I think when you lose, you figure out um, how to reflect and then retool things, rework things such that you become a better team. And that's exactly what we did when I was playing full-time hockey with, I played for three teams. Rochester Mustangs in the USHL. I was traded to the Thunder Bay Flyers in the USHL, and then I played for the Helena Gold Rush in the AWHL at the time. And and we had some great success too. And I'd say like and I leverage that experience to this day in that, and I tell my team this: when you have a well-functioning team, you really know it. And I think those were my early examples of well-functioning teams. And that's what I sort of leverage today. It's like, when you have a great team, I'm reflecting on my hockey experience to tell me this is a great team because I know what it feels like. I know the camaraderie in the locker room. I know, what it feels like to want to spend time with your teammates outside of the hockey rink or outside of the office, as it were. And I know what it feels like to win, and I know what needs to happen when you lose too. You really need to reflect and retool.
Yeah. I guess one of the beauty in sports is no matter how much you plan or prepared or from a readiness standpoint, you have no control of the outcome. So, and as you said loudly, that you learn more from losing than from winning because you reflect and then you
That's
go
right.
out there on the pitch or on the ice, you roll your sleeves and you prepare for the next one. And again, you have no control
That's right.
on the outcome. So that's the beauty.
I love that you say you have no control of the outcome because many years ago I would have argued you on that point. But the older I've gotten,
Mhm.
um, I found out that there are very few things in life that you can actually control. And that is a crazy epiphany I've had over the past number of years. It's like when you're a
Mhm.
kid, you think you can control everything. It's your world. It's all this. And I think that's a great
Absolutely.
mentality that allows you to be super, super productive. But the older you get, you find out, wow, there are very few things I can actually control in this world. And it's a little scary when you think about that, but it's definitely the truth.
Yeah. And since you spoke about leadership, I'm going to tell you one thing, man. I'm going to warn you that the best leadership lesson it's while parenting. It's at home. Just wait for it, Phil.
Nice.
you know,
Nice.
you're
Yeah,
going to be tested, man.
yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. But it's a blessing. It's a blessing. It's an
For
absolutely
sure.
blessing. But it's tough, man. It's tough. Were you naturally competitive, Phil, or did sport bring that out of you?
It's hard to really know. I feel like my parents are very competitive people. Um, Actually, my mom, an amazing homemaker. She was a stay-at-home mom our whole lives, really dedicating her life to raising us. She was amazing. And my dad, an entrepreneur, he built some companies within the tire industry, and I think I got some of their competitive genes. Both are very, very competitive people. But I would say that sports can really bring that out in you as well. But I mean, I just think about, we were at this event, sort of party where they did this like little game. This was just this past weekend, and it was a silly little game, and it's like I am like the most competitive person. It's like this. It was this silly game where you had to guess how long all these animals were pregnant. Like, it turns out, like, a dog is pregnant for only 2 months, a cat's only pregnant for 2 months, and, like,
Yeah.
there are animals that are only pregnant for 21 days. I didn't know this, but, like, I was the most competitive guy. Everyone's, like, looking at me. I'm like, I'm doing everything I can to win. So, yeah, I think a part of that is learned and cultivated, and a part of that is probably, deeply embedded in my soul. So sort of the nature and the nurture, I guess.
Right. When you look at the entrepreneurship today, does it ever feel like a team sport to you?
Oh, it feels so much like a team sport. That's really why I look back at my time on the ice rink as really a helpful analogy. Every single day it feels like a team sport, especially when you're building early stage companies and your team is on the smaller side. You may have a team that's very similar to an athletic team, like 20 people in the office. And what I found is, on the hockey rink, in well functioning teams, everyone really knows their job and their role, and that's not as easy as you would think. Like, you may say, well, you should know your role. You're either a forward, a defenseman, or you're a goalie. But, like, that's not really how it works. Like, there are goal scorers, there are playmakers, there are goons or tough guys, out there to intimidate the other team. And so that's no different. I mean, it is different. There aren't goal scorers and goons. I hope there aren't goons here in SimpliFiber, but really the analogy is still there. It's like everyone needs to know their role on the team, and that's really for the captain or the C-suite leadership to ensure that everyone knows exactly what they should be doing. And I would say too, as a leader, we hire people who have strong opinions and who we don't have to necessarily supervise day in and day out. We hire them because we care about their perspective and we care about their decision making. And so we put a lot of trust, confidence, and responsibility on basically everyone in SimpliFiber. And again, that's no different than people in a hockey locker room or any other athletic team. So I'm really pulling a lot from those early days of playing hockey as I build these companies.
Right. So from hockey to your path eventually moved to the Air Force Academy, another high performance environment, but with much higher stakes. How did the military service change your understanding of leadership?
Yeah, well, a lot of the cliches may be true in this situation. I mean, certainly discipline is very much valued in certainly in the early stages of your time as a U.S. Air Force Academy cadet. The first year is really terrible. So we called it the dually year or the 4-degree year. West Point calls it the plebe year, but it's like basically a full year of being harassed and hazed. And I say that in the best possible way because when we were finally recognized, which is the culmination of the first year, and we're finally treated like human beings at the end of your freshman year, it was still to this day one of the best days of my life. But I would say, um, really a better understanding of how important discipline and respect is within a team was a big lesson learned there. And I would say too, maybe something that's a little more surprising than what I just said, because I'd say some of that would be perceived as maybe a cliche, but what I found as well is, and I would say this was true generally in the athletic environment as well, but people who saw themselves as creative people, or they had, an artistic bent, or, an artistic bone in their body or something like that, they really were succeeding. Like, that was the case, um, you know, on the hockey rink, in the hockey locker room. That was the case in military uniform as well. And a lot of people are surprised when I say that. But, w- it's those of us who really feel like we're creative people, whether we are or not, it's like those are the people, not the total hard asses. The people who feel that they're the creative people, those are the people who are really rising to the heights of being, say, a captain of a hockey team, or rising to the heights of making new ranks within the military, maybe even before your peers, et cetera. So that's really what I saw on the inside of the military, which was very surprising to me. My peers and I did very well in uniform, and that's something that really taught me that it's not just about, like, let's say, the hard science. It's also about the artistic approach. It's about science and art. And I would say, like, not this was an unintentional segue into MIT, but I love that the MIT crest has the scientist and the artist on it. And it's really that balance that is so important. So basically, the hard skills and the soft skills, the science skills and the artist skills. And I saw that on the hockey rink, in the US military, in uniform, and certainly in the business world, building venture-backed companies.
Nice. What did you learn about decision making when the stakes are real and the information are, let's say, quite often incomplete in the military?
Yeah, I love that question. What I've learned about decision making overall is that you have to be quick about making key decisions. It doesn't mean you always have to rush into decisions. Like, there is calculation involved for sure. But there are fantastic quotes on this for, that that span military and business. But certainly, quick decisions are very important to keeping a ship moving forward, so to speak, keeping an organization moving forward, keeping the sports athletic team moving forward. And that's really what I learned in the military. I think it really started there. I mean, I don't tell many people this, but there was a time in Afghanistan where I was supporting the army there. I was in the U.S. Air Force, but at the time, uh, most of the U.S. Army, if you were deployed, were forward deployed, they call it, out in the field doing combat operations. And so the other services, the Air Force and the Navy, sort of backfill and provide other means of support. And so I was one of those people supporting the Army as a mentor and advisor at the Afghan Ministry of Defense in Kabul. And I was very fortunate to see 14 different provinces across Afghanistan. I traveled the entire country. I had 15 Afghan National Army officers, very high ranking, that reported to me, and we were building policy for the country. And we did site surveys all around to ensure the local units were getting the care and feeding they needed. And so I think this was a really, I sort of lost my train of thought here, but it was a really consequential consequential part of my life. I hope I get that train of thought back because I think I was on a good path there, Sid.
Yeah, yeah, you did. We're talking about the decision making, especially in the military, where quite often the information is incomplete, and this is the nature of the military, you know. But since we were talking earlier about your experience in sport and in business as well, and when I ask you, who do you rely on in terms of trust? And your first pick was yourself. But then when you are in the military, the trust, you trust the team, you trust the decision makers, subject, and here, regardless the readiness, you know, subject that the whole, how I say, the whole armada, the whole team, the logistic, everything is ready. But then you rely on your teammate, you rely on your colleagues, you rely on the decision makers. And this will lead me to talk about pressure, you know, how you deal with pressure, especially when you are in the military, and what you learn from it. Is entrepreneurship more stressful than military service, or just a different type of pressure?
Yeah, I think okay, I'll approach both of those pieces. I guess first I'd like to say that especially as an officer in the military, I always thought that even though my teams, in essence, there were slight variations to this, but in essence, my teams were given to me. So I'd come into a unit and you take
Okay.
command or you're the officer in charge or something like that. You don't really have a say as far as who's given to you, but you do have a lot of say as far as how you shape and develop a team. And so that's very important. So you can kind of control your own destiny that way, if you will. So that's something that I think young leaders um, should always keep in mind. It's like you may be in situations in corporate America, for example, or anywhere around the globe where your team is in essence given to you, but you can shape that team. You can develop that team. You can work with them to train them to meet your standards, and that can't be discounted. That is super important to do. Every leadership or every leader should be looking at their teams that way. You need to look at your team as sort of a
Right.
malleable group of people, I think. So, and then I'd
And
say,
on that, just for our listeners, I want to clarify a point here. From your experience, part of a hockey team, then the military, now you leading a business. When you say shape a team, uh, from a leadership style standpoint, what's your style, Phil? Is it accountability? Is it empathy? Is it both that will help you shape that team?
yeah, definitely both. I remember when I was a young lieutenant, if I was a second lieutenant, the first officer rank, or a first lieutenant, the second officer rank. But I remember jotting down something that I remember to this day, and that is expectations, accountability, direction, guidance, and attention. And if you want the 85% solution to leadership, everyone should remember those five things. The next 15%, the final 15% of the leadership equation, is very much up to you. So you're going to have your own style. You're you're going to be playful at work. You're going to do, you're going to sign your own form of leadership with your own style. But again, it's expectations, accountability, direction, guidance, and attention. And if you follow those five things week in and week out, and make sure your team in essence is taken care of, then you're going to be on a really good path. And I think it's those five things that many people, especially young leaders, fail to understand. And so they'll walk into an organization or they'll try to build a company and they have no idea why people aren't doing as they say. And I'd say that's something that's interesting too. One thing I learned in the military, everyone thinks that when you're an officer and you're, giving your people an order. I came out of college, I was the assistant officer in charge as the first officer rank, a second lieutenant of 250 people. And so it was an amazing amount of responsibility, but everyone thinks that you just give an order to this group of 250 people and everyone just does as you say. That couldn't be farther from
Yeah.
the truth. You actually, humans are humans. It doesn't matter if they're in military uniforms or in a big company or walking down the street. And so you have to get people on your side. You have to get people in essence to like you. And what I mean by like is not pandering to them. I mean, they have to understand that you genuinely care about them. And you can show that in a bunch of different ways. Um, but that was a really important thing that I learned there.
Yeah. And I agree with you, because when you are genuinely caring, then you establish a trust, you know, and it's vital.
Yeah, and I would say you asked the question, I'll go back to it. I didn't answer it, Sid. But you asked the question of like basically what was more challenging, the US military leadership or leadership in a tech startup. And I'd say both are challenging for their own reasons. But at I would say those two forms of leadership, though, are kind of at the top of all the forms of leadership you could be doing. And the reason is, and I'm talking about like leadership in a deployed location where your actions and your decisions are super consequential. Like they could get people killed, for example. Your actions and decisions are very consequential as a founder, as a tech startup entrepreneur as well. So those two fields, maybe deployed leadership, a difficult and uncertain environment, and tech startup founder are both extremely consequential. I would argue that on almost a daily, certainly a weekly basis, as a tech startup founder, you have to make decisions that literally could impact whether you're able to pay your people or not pay your people. And so I just see those as maybe the two most consequential forms of leadership. Again, that would be, military leadership in a difficult and uncertain deployed environment, and then being a tech startup founder. Those are extremely consequential. So both very difficult. I would say though, you really feel like the whole world is on your shoulders when you're building a startup company. And in a lot of ways, the whole world is on your shoulders, whether your team succeeds or fails. And so I feel like I had more sleepless nights as a tech startup founder than I had as a U.S. military officer, but both are very challenging.
I fully agree with you. And thanks for sharing, by the way. So
Yeah, of course.
sounds familiar. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So, Phil, you went to MIT Sloan when you had space to reflect on the next chapter of your life. Why did MIT feel like the right place for you?
Yeah, it felt like the right place because I knew it would be a very difficult academic environment. I knew it would be very challenging, and that's what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for any old MBA to sort of check the block or something like that. I was looking for one of the most, if not the most challenging MBA experiences. And that's exactly what I got. I remember I had taken a number of years off as most people do, going to one of the big MBA programs. Um, a number of years between my bachelor degree and then my MBA. And like day one, I'm in the basic economics course at MIT Sloan, and they're talking about integrals and derivatives. Like these are calculus 1, calculus 2 types of discussions that I had forgotten many years prior to going to MIT. So it was like I really got what I paid for there. Very difficult environment, and the types of people you work with there. And this is a little bit of a cliche. You'll hear this from a lot of people, but your peer group, that is very much the value. It's like you're with very, very impressive people around you who have done some really, really important and unique things. And that peer group is one that you can leverage the rest of your life. So that was one of the big takeaways from the business school experience from me.
You have built companies in very different spaces: music technology, healthcare, consumer products, advanced materials. On paper, they look unrelated to me. But what connects those chapters for you, Phil?
Well, first of all, building companies to me, it's another avenue of creativity. It's not so different to me than it would be to write a song if you're a musician, or, you know, paint an illustration if you're a painter or something like that. You're sort of using the same muscles, the same creative muscles to create these companies. I would just say that it usually takes a lot longer to build these businesses than it does to maybe write a song or paint a picture or something like that. But so to me, the thread that sort of brings everything together is you're exercising your creativity. That's the way I look at each and every one of those things. Now, as I, and again, it's like I probably do a very poor job of reflecting on my past life and looking in the past. I'm mostly very much focused on the future. But when you recount those things for me, Sid, I think about going from a less physical product, software as a service, to a more physical product, a hard tech company. Like that was my trajectory in entrepreneurship, and that was not really calculated. That was like a very natural, organic progression. But as you recount the different companies I've done, and I think about that, it went from more abstract to harder, more product-based companies. And when I think about that a bit more, I think that it is a lot easier when you trim away all the fat. It is a lot easier to sell physical products and things that people can feel and touch than it is to sell abstract products like software. A lot of people have a lot of success,
Fully agree.
but for me, a physical product, something hard that you can touch, is something that wins out.
Right, right. Love it. I love it. Yeah. Especially since COVID, it felt like we living in this bubble of startups, everyone rushing to, at the end of the day, every business, it starts from an idea. And that idea, it's mainly to solve a problem. Yeah. And with all your ventures, Phil, how do you know when a problem is worth solving or pursuing?
Yeah. I love that question. I More times than not, the initial problem or idea may fade away. Like maybe you'll hold on to the initial problem, and the idea or the implementation of how you solve the problem will morph and change over time. But sometimes even the initial problem changes a bit. So uh, I think it's less like, maybe it is a bit about the vision and the initial problem, but it's more about you being able to work on something over the long term. And you have to understand, and I didn't initially understand this when I initially went into the entrepreneurship realm. It's like, no, the idea I have to solve this problem is the only one that's going to work, and I have it, and no one else has it. And that just isn't the truth. When you're starting a venture, it's not just about the product. It's about all the things around it. And I would say that's why it's so important to build the right team. Because if you build the right team And generally people understand the North Star. Maybe that is the problem that you set out to solve. You're going to do some really great work together. But yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
how do I know that initial problem is one worth solving? I'd say it has to do with the team you're able to forge and bring together around you. If that team you're able to forge and bring together around you is a team you're willing to fight a battle with, then you know you're on the right track. So it's almost less about the product. I would say it's even less about the problem itself. It's more about the team. And that's why I tell entrepreneurs in the early phase, I go, the first thing you do, a lot of people ask me, what is my first step? I said, the first step always is to walk up to the top of a mountain and scream at the top of your lungs to everyone who's willing to listen what you're trying to do, and see who wants to build with you. That is the first step. And check out that team you're forging around you. And if that team is worth fighting for and fighting a battle with, then you got something. And that team can go anywhere, and you can change and you can morph the mission with time and what have you. But that team that's how you make things happen.
How did the SimpliFiber start?
SimpliFiber started with my business partner, Maria Inter-Orang, one of my closest friends ever. At the time, she was introduced to me through a mutual friend and classmate of mine from MIT Sloan. And this mutual friend of ours knew that I was into fashion in my own way. And Maria at the time was a very high-end luxury fashion designer. She was leading Vera Wang's runway collection at the time when we met. And so we were introduced to each other, and our mutual friend Scarlett said, "Hey, Phil, you may want to talk with Maria about this. I know you have interest in fashion, and Maria's looking for some investment." And I said, "Wow, that's fantastic. Maybe the stars will align." Well, we had our initial conversation. COVID sort of got really rough for a bit. We lost contact, and sort of at the tail end, we picked our conversations back up, and I said, "Hey, listen, Maria, I think you're an amazing person. I'd love to find a way to invest in this." The idea was very early. I knew there was something there. We didn't know exactly where it would go at the time, but I said, I'd be interested in finding a way to invest or in building this company with you. And I'll leave that up to you for you to pick which one works best. And she said, "I want to build this company with you." And so really the rest is history. Again, we were remotely located, Maria in Brooklyn, New York. I was in Nashville, Tennessee. Our first meetings, Maria flew out to Nashville, and we dirtied a bunch of pots and pans on our stove to get some of the initial idea worked out. Actually, some of the video footage in our initial company introduction videos is from those early meetings of Maria and me. I can't believe we captured it. I think it's a great artifact. And then we really built things from there. Maria spent a lot of time. We made a decision to contract with a lab, so we bring some dedicated scientists to the forefront. We went out of pocket for that. That was when the company was bootstrapped, and then onward and upward from there. Really, after the big COVID stuff had mostly subsided, we decided to locate the headquarters in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is where we sit now. So really a cool founding story. Like each company has a different founding story, but I love the story behind the start of SimpliFiber. It was very organic, and really got a great friend in Maria out of it.
Fantastic. From the get-go, what problem were you and Maria trying to solve from the start?
Yes. Well, at the start, it was very much focused on fashion. Fashion has this, and to this day, has a very antiquated system that's manufacturing system that's over 250 years old. You spin and weave to get a fabric. You get the fabric, you do the design, you cut the pattern pieces, then you reassemble the pattern pieces into the ultimate object. We knew that early on we could cut out a bunch of steps in that manufacturing process by going straight from fibers, putting those fibers in a liquid slurry, putting that liquid slurry into a mold framework, and creating 3D shaped products. And so that the initial problem we were trying to solve had very much to do with bringing a new manufacturing system that would be important to the fashion industry. But what we ended up finding is that this manufacturing system is applicable far outside of fashion. Really, it's agnostic of vertical market. So it doesn't matter if it's fashion or footwear or automotive or consumer goods, whatever it may be. We're really here creating a new family of cellulose-based materials, and we've created a new manufacturing method from which to create those materials. And so, as we've sort of ramped up and we've raised more rounds of funding, the company has grown. It's really become a very, very big idea behind the creation of SimpliFiber.
Was it an easy task to secure funding?
No, funding funding is very
The
difficult
reason
to
I'm
secure.
asking you this, yeah, the reason
Yeah,
I'm asking you this, and for our listeners, because you had an idea, you met Maria. I'm just curious, when did you realize you and Maria this could become much bigger than a materials company?
yes. Well,
Because this will lead me uh, from this question, it will lead me basically, how did you pitch for potential investors or people to fund to follow you basically?
yeah. So early on, the pitches were mostly about the fashion industry, and then of course we blossomed things into being a solution agnostic of vertical market that
Mm.
applies across all these vertical markets. Um, but fundraising is always difficult. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The only reason it may look easy from the outside is you don't see all the hard work going on behind the scenes. Um, the first round of fundraising, I'm forgetting exactly how long it took for us to raise our seed round. Maybe that was 6 months. But for our Series A raise, it
Right.
took us 13 months to raise. So it's like a lot of hard work on the inside, most of which no one from the outside sees, whether they're your family or friends or just someone looking at your profile on LinkedIn. It all seems like entrepreneurs are, just raising millions of dollars with the snap of a finger or something like that. And I even have a bit of a track record behind me, and you would think it'd get easier and easier to raise money. That's not the case. It's like
Yeah.
I continue to bang my head against the wall like everyone else in the startup world, as we build these businesses. But again, going back to what I said with MIT, it's like I was looking for a difficult and a challenging environment, and that's no different from wanting a difficult and challenging professional experience as well. I mean, again, that's sort of the thread that intertwines all of the stuff that I do. And even though you do end up banging your head against the wall a lot of the time, I kind of wouldn't want it any other way.
Mm. And what you're describing, Phil, 90% of startups, they just pull the plug. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I got one thing to say on that front, really quickly, Sid, and I love your saying that they just pull the plug. This is one thing I found, in a number of different realms in the tech startup world and outside of it, you really never know how close you are to succeeding. You have no idea. So the name of the game is to hold on. The name of the game is not to die. That's the name of the game.
So
So
hold on there, Phil. Is it similar? Does it remind you of the your hockey time where you prepare and you sweat and you train and you have no control of the outcome?
yeah, I think so. And maybe you have no control, no real control of the outcome. But my dad always said, life is the longest game you're going to play. It's You're going to play that until the day you die. And you just want to continue to give yourself chances to win. And the longer you go, the more chances you're going to have to win. So it's about not dying, staying in the game. Back to your point of like a lot of startups pulling the plug. Again, you really have no idea how close you are to succeeding in some way, shape, or form. So the name of the game is to hold on and don't die.
What was the moment, Phil, you and Maria knew that this idea it's real now?
Yeah, actually, it was way back during our contract lab days when we self-funded the company, when we searched for some third-party scientists who we contracted with. That was sort of the milestone that we needed to undertake and succeed at for us to move ahead. We saw enough during our contract lab days that knew we had the nucleus of something that we could build into a company and a business. But I would say you're always evaluating throughout the company's life. You know, you're evaluating milestones in that way, and I would say that's why, oftentimes the next round of funding is based on the company's hitting a series of milestones. So but that was the first big milestone of SimpliFiber where we knew we had the nucleus of something special. That was back in our contract lab days.
Right. Did your value proposition changed over time while you're in this reevaluating the process, the idea, yeah.
Yes, value proposition changed a lot. We started during a time where sustainable materials reigned supreme. It didn't really matter at the time, back in the early 2020s, didn't really matter as much about a cost parity with traditional materials or what have you. You could just lean into the sustainability story. Um, Luckily for us, Maria and I really started the company questioning that. So we started the company with the idea of creating something that would be able to hit cost parity with regard to traditional materials from the very start. And our hypothesis really rung true over time. We saw a lot of sustainable material companies go out of business. I like to call them dead bodies in front of us, and I tell our team to avoid the dead bodies in front of us. And that means the other sustainable materials companies who have gone out of business over the past few years. And there are some big cases of that. And so our value proposition, originally, we were leaning very much into the sustainability element. Now we're very much leaning into the cost parity element of the company and the performance-based story behind our materials. So anything to do with lighter weight and unique properties of the materials that would be very exciting for the automotive industry, the footwear industry, the consumer goods industry. And SimpliFiber certainly has a lot of those. We're generally speaking lighter weight than traditional materials, especially used within the automotive cabin of your car. We have interesting acoustic dampening properties that aren't inherent in traditional materials. We have very exciting thermal and electrical conductivity figures behind our materials, and we're very close to cost parity with traditional materials. So the big sustainability element of SimpliFiber is still there. It will always be a part of our DNA, an important part of our DNA, but that's really the cherry on top. And so that's how the value proposition really changed over time. Fantastic question. And I love hearing that and reflecting on that, because there have been some big changes inside SimpliFiber.
Right. What did Maria's design and fashion background bring to the company?
A lot. So early on, especially early on, very design heavy company. The aesthetic had to be forward looking, future focused, something that appealed to early adopters, especially early in the company's life. And so when we think about our initial customers, our very first customers were Hewlett Packard and Puma. Hewlett Packard actually brokered a connection with us through footwear, through their molded fiber realm and their footwear division, believe it or not. Most people don't know that HP has a footwear division.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yep. So very, very interesting. And of course, when it came to the products that we developed with these companies, and then moving on from there, of course, Maria was instrumental in the design and design oversight of those products. It's very important to sort of, putting your flag in the sand, so to speak, and marking your territory as a company that's very serious and has its own unique design design element. So very, very important part of our company.
Yeah. I'll go back to something you said earlier, maybe 3 or 4 times, creativity, the creative element of a person. Now, looking back, Phil, if you have to give an advice to young adults or teenagers, what would it be?
Well, I guess some of my advice wouldn't be surrounding creativity. But on the creativity side of the house, I would say to anyone listening that entrepreneurship is sort of a creative avenue of expression, much like other creative avenues of expression, music or, illustration or whatever it may be. But back to my advice, I've found over time that so many people get in your way. It doesn't matter if you're driving down the street, people are getting in your way. And this probably isn't a good thing that I view it this way, because I probably have way too many traffic tickets. But you're driving down the road and, you're in the passing lane on the highway, and all of a sudden a slower car will pull in front of you. And so my advice for everyone, it doesn't matter if you're on the highway or if you're burning through life, people are going to get in your way. A surprising amount of people are going to get in your way. And a surprising number of friends and family, I hate to say it, are at times going to get in your way. And your job
all the time.
Exactly.
All the time.
Because they're living their lives and they're trying to give you advice based on their lives. They don't know your life. You're the one piloting.
But they do it out of love.
But my big advice is always go around. So
love it.
Someone gets in your way, just go around. Don't let it ruin your day. So many people are going to get in your way. Go around. And then I would say too, stay out of others' ways. Like, just don't be the guy getting in someone's way. And that was a big thing in the US military as well. It's like, you need to have situational awareness of what's happening around you. Get the heck out of the way. But I would say go around people who get in your way. That's my biggest advice.
Yeah. Thank you, Phil, for sharing. Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Now, for listeners who have never heard about SimpliFiber, explain it like we are sitting at the kitchen table, Phil. How would you explain liquid fiber molding in simple terms?
Yeah. So SimpliFiber has created a new family of cellulose-based materials and a new manufacturing system from which to create those materials. So what this really looks like is a big production system that has a big bathtub, let's call it a bathtub, of liquid in it. In this liquid is our fibers and our wet chemistry. And we have a mold that's held up by a big robotic arm and that is dunked within this bath of fibers. And these fibers are sucked up into our mold head. And then the robotic arm lifts up the fibers. Now they're a bit dried and a bunch of water has been removed, pushes it with a bunch of heat and pressure, and then out comes on our assembly line a 3D molded product that you can do further assembly to down the assembly line. But in essence, that's really the key SimpliFiber material. It's the manufacturing process that leads to the finished material. And the coolest thing about this is that we can create materials that are soft and flexible, competing directly against traditional fabrics and textiles, all the way to materials that are super rigid and durable, competing against hard plastics. So I like to think of SimpliFiber, and especially if we're talking around like a kitchen table, as a big materials vending machine. An operator comes up, dials in the type of material they want made on our materials vending machine, presses go, and the rest is history. The output is that material in a 3D shape of your choice. And it's a super cool, futuristic system. And we're so excited as a company, and we're getting into this phase whereby we're not just manufacturing the materials in-house at SimpliFiber headquarters right outside my office in Raleigh, North Carolina. We're starting to sell our machinery downrange around the globe such that factories around the globe can create SimpliFiber materials from soft and flexible to ultra rigid and durable all around the world. So really exciting time of company development.
Thanks again. Fantastic explanation. Now, on that, let's shift gear and focus slightly on manufacturing process. Most people never think deeply about how products are made. We buy shoes, clothes, bags, car interiors, packaging, and rarely ask what happened before that product reached the consumer. From your perspective, Phil, what is broken in the current manufacturing system?
What is broken in the current manufacturing system? Well, first of all, manufacturing is very difficult, and I'm not sure I really understood how difficult it is until creating SimpliFiber with Maria, my business partner, because we are creating a new manufacturing method, and it's very difficult. I think that this idea that maybe someone else, I think this is kind of what's broken. An incorrect understanding of all the actions that go into creating something that you use every day. Like, I have so much more respect after having created SimpliFiber with Maria about all the things that go into making an iPhone, or even the production process behind a simple cup or something like that. And I think it is sort of a broken idea that, for example, everything, and we have business partners in China, but like we're just sort of outsourcing manufacturing to China or something like that. I think it's this time of the world where we really need to make manufacturing easier and more digestible for people to undertake around the globe, and therefore localize production. And that's really one of the big concepts behind SimpliFiber too, which is localizing the production of SimpliFiber materials using local feedstock, et cetera, and serving the local ecosystem. And so back to answer your question, I think it's an ill understanding of all the things that go into actual manufacturing of a product. And we're really trying to change the idea behind that and making it as simple as possible to create these beautiful three-dimensionally shaped materials that save a lot of time and money in the ultimate assembly of a product. So I like that question a lot, Sid.
Yeah. Don't you think, Phil, looking back at the history, mainly the developed country or the West, since the Industrial Revolution, which so many Western countries, they prosper from it. I mean, we outsourced the raw materials, we manufactured locally. And then suddenly now we are designing locally, but manufacturing outside, mainly in Asia. Did we somehow lost completely? Because you were talking earlier about your experience, your startup from SaaS solution to proper manufacturing. Did we lost touch completely with the way we used to do things here and prosper as a community, as a society? And now we see, if we have to compare apple to apple, this is not to talk negatively about China, but China is absolutely leading the way.
Yeah, I think we have lost a lot. I mean, and there's a similar train of thought or argument regarding our food sources as well. It's like, only if you, this is one argument, only if you, for example, if you're a meat eater and you kill your own food source, skin it, prepare it, cook it, only if you do that will you really have a genuine understanding of all that goes into your food source, for example. And maybe the same goes for manufacturing as well. So I mean, I look at it in two ways. I think there is an argument there for sure. It's like, I would love if everyone had a better understanding of all the pieces that go into manufacturing the products that they use every day. The fact of the matter is it'd be really hard to get everyone on board with understanding that. So, we're at a moment in time where we sort of have what has been given to us. We're able to outsource manufacturing. We're able to tap into artificial intelligence to, write our research papers if we're in college now or something like that. So as opposed to fighting against that, I'm more of the mind where people should be building on top of that. And that's back to SimpliFiber, one of the big ideas here as well. We very much see SimpliFiber as a platform technology such that when we diffuse the SimpliFiber machinery around the globe and people are able to make SimpliFiber materials locally, that people are going to be creating SimpliFiber materials that we've never dreamed of before. So we're experiencing true platform effects whereby this really is a new category and family of materials. And again, it's like people are taking this to places that we never dreamed of. So that's really where I'm looking at things from the perspective of sitting in SimpliFiber. It's like we want, regardless of how people understand manufacturing, we want people to build on top of the SimpliFiber platform. And that's really how we see that the world is going to be taken to the next level as far as materials production locally.
Right. I think to simplify it, going back to my earlier question about have we lost touch with manufacturing comparing to China, the main reason or the root cause, of course, is the labor cost. So manufacturing there, it's way much cheaper, put it this way. And therefore, if we talk about scalability and we talk about mass production, it's a no-brainer the East and Asia are much more efficient in that way or much prosper. Yeah. But then your solution, correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, the way just to simplify it, I think your solution, it's much more to do with efficient systems when we talk about manufacturing.
That's right. Yep. It's bringing new efficiency to the manufacturing and production of materials in a number of different ways. One is we're eliminating the spinning and weaving from the materials creation process. Another is that since we're creating a three-dimensional material in the end, we're eliminating a lot of the cutting and sewing that goes into the traditional assembly of a finished product. So absolutely, there are a lot of simplification steps that are going on there that bring new value to basically factories around the globe once they do adopt. So absolutely, that goes back to why we're named SimpliFiber. It is about simplifying manufacturing such that basically the world is getting better materials, better for the environment, and they don't need to pay a premium for these because we're at cost parity with traditional manufacturing. And that is so important to the SimpliFiber idea and diffusing our technology around the globe.
Yeah, yeah. And I believe the sports industry will definitely benefit from your solution. Just to give our audience an example, 15 years ago, I used to organize between almost 90 major events a year. Now, if we talk about only one product that we used in every event, sporting event, it's branding, flags, banners, pop-ups, roll-ups, branding, outdoor, indoor, print material, lanyard, and stuff like that. Now, if you organize 90 events, you multiply that by 90, and you cannot reuse what you use the previous event. That's a lot of stuff, lot of branding that goes to, sorry to say, landfills because you cannot recycle it. And the production system, it's dealing with suppliers, and from where they outsource the stuff, there is so much waste when you cut a material. So what you do with the waste? If you have flags, if you have banners, if you have it's and we don't talk about that in the sports industry. So
that's right.
And you had the FIFA World Cup in the US, Mexico, and Canada. Just imagine the amount of branding. What do you do with all that?
Yep.
There we go.
That's the majority of that is plastic.
It is.
A lot of people brand it as polyester. It's all just plastic. And most of that will go into landfills at some point. And even more than that, all that stuff was manufactured by, taking a large roll of polyester and cutting pattern pieces. So there's inherent waste in that as well. And yeah, back to SimpliFiber, we're creating the parts that we need in a liquid slurry in the three-dimensional shape that the final assembled product requires. And so it's inherently sustainable, our process, and it's circular in the fact that we can recycle our product back into itself. So yeah, we very much dream of a day where manufacturing is simplified and that our technology is diffused around the globe for sure. But yeah, specific to the World Cup, yeah, very, very interesting use case because it's very timely, of course, and there's going to be so much waste, of course, coming from that event. But what a great event, the World Cup.
It is. It is. We should have started talking about the World Cup, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was very pleased to see sorry to cut you, Phil, since we're talking about the World Cup. I was so pleased to see the feedback, positive feedback, basically, from European, mainly from Europe, spectators and teams as well, and players, their impression about America from the gastronomy standpoint, food, clothing, is just absolutely positive. I must say, quite often here we picture America that when it comes to products, and because so many products are banned, mainly food, beverages, and things like that. So and cosmetics. So yeah, that was impressive, and the audience, yeah, love it, love
I
it.
I love it too. I think generally it's a really good look for America, which always pleases me. I, after having spent 5 years in China, the the typical impression on the streets of the American is that we're overweight, we're a bit sloppy, our food is bad. Uh, In fact, most of the people that I met locally in China thought I was either German or Russian because I'm not fat or sloppy. So I'm really glad. I hope we can change that impression in the eyes of the world. So
Yeah. And one thing I must say, and this is regardless the FIFA, I traveled the world basically. I met so many people, so many people from all, but Americans by far are the most generous people, nice people,
wow.
you know, regardless what we see on TV, regardless what we see on TV. I must say, my experience, yeah, it's
I appreciate
Americans are
that.
really, Americans, they have a big heart, put it this way, big heart.
I think that's a good way. I think that's a good way to put it. We like to say that Canadians are the nicest people in the world. At least when you're an American, we say Canadians are the nicest. But I like the big heart thing. I agree with the big heart thing.
It is. I keep asking myself, why is it like that? What's behind the big heart? Is it the history? Is it the culture? I don't know. Look, here in Europe, we lost one vital part of what makes Europe great. We lost the sense of community, Phil. I don't know. Is it prosperity? Is it modernity? We lost the sense of community. In America and in Asia as well, but in America, I'm not talking about big cities like New York, Chicago, or LA, but wherever you go in United States of America, there is still that, how I say, the sense of community. Yeah,
Yeah,
we lost touch with that, which is pity, which
yeah.
is
I
a
think
shame.
I think having spent a bit of time in the Middle East and specifically Afghanistan, Persian Gulf, even in China, I do think there really is, and I think by and large in those countries that I mentioned, the idea of the family structure has stayed intact much more than even in the US. But I do think there's an element of that in the US as well. So, but I've always looked up to that being in Afghanistan or wherever it may be. It's like this this idea that we're all in it together and we're all a team here. And if we come together, we can overcome just about anything that's thrown our way is really great. And I would say a part of to your point, Sid, a part of the American idea is like, it, it doesn't matter what you want to do in America, you can find a way to do that. And I would say, even though other people are starting at, different people are starting at different entry points to that, really still you are able to do, so long as you're not hurting other people, of course, and that's a whole other discussion, but you're really able to do almost anything you'd like to do, to build a future that is important to you. And back to the thing that started this phone call, um, you know, you should be on the lookout for people asking you interesting questions, and you should be on the lookout, this is my perspective, for ways of saying yes that will ultimately lead you down interesting paths. And like, there's no better place to do that in my eyes, even though I've seen a lot of the parts of the world. I've traveled extensively, lived in many places. Still, I feel like America, there's a little spark there, um, whereby you really can take your life wherever you'd like to take it, and it's all just right there for you to dive into if you have the confidence to do so.
Right, right. And on that, Phil, do you believe you and Maria, you are living the American dream?
Oh yeah, for sure. I hope Maria feels that way. I feel for sure I'm living the American dream. I I am excited to be alive. I feel like this is a very consequential point in my life. Even though I built other companies, it feels so new. I still am banging my head against the wall. I am still in difficult, uncertain, uncomfortable uh, experiences, and that's the way I like it. It feels fresh. It feels like I'm able to stay young. I'm 46 years old, and it feels like I want to be doing this.
And you shared with me that you and your wife, you are expecting your first child.
That's right. I still can't believe it. So, due in November.
Yeah, yeah. So becoming a father, is it going to change the way you think about success and life?
I've been told it's going to change everything, and I kind of believe that.
It will. It will, man. It will. I can guarantee you that. So
I have no idea what I'm up against. I'm sure it's going to be crazy and wild, but again, that's kind of how I like things. So it's like, bring it on. Let's go.
it's gonna be beautiful, and yeah, it's gonna be beautiful. Put it this way.
Wow.
No matter how many books or podcasts about parenting you're gonna read or listen and things like that, at the end of the day, it's you and your wife. You're gonna set how I say, yeah, it's a blessing, man. It's a blessing, and yeah,
I love
it's
hearing that from you, Sid. I love it.
yeah, yeah. My only advice is don't miss the first 4 years, 5 years, because as an entrepreneur, I really wish you all the best. By the way,
Thank
you
you.
know, and how tough to be an entrepreneur and to scale the business and to look forward. Just don't make the mistake, because I made that mistake, hosting so many events a year. Basically, every 3 days, I had a major event with 200 permanent staff working for you, and you have to deliver, and at what cost? So when you have a young family, yeah, don't sacrifice anything. When it comes to time, basically, the time is so precious and it's so hard to, yeah, you don't take that back. So give as much time as possible when you can for the little one, for the family.
I appreciate that advice, Sid. Thank you. Yeah, I'd take that to heart.
Yeah. Because when I look back, that's the only thing I regret, put it this way. Yeah.
Wow. That's really great. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're listening to the Pre-Zero Sports Talk. For more conversations on sports leadership, faith, performance, and innovation from Sweden to the world, visit prezerosportstalk.com. Now it's time for our lightning round. So ready for speedy Q&A?
I'm ready.
Let's do this. Coffee, tea, or something else?
Definitely coffee. I drink like at least 5 cups of coffee a day, I would say, on the average day. And it propels me, and I love it. It's ritualistic. I love getting up and creating coffee, and it's great.
Same. Favorite city you have ever visited?
Definitely a lot. A city we want to go back to is Prague. It was really magical. Rachel, my wife, and I lived a magical moment there where just sort of the stars aligned under the castle in the background. And I mean, it was just
Prague
magical.
Castle, Charles Bridge.
Yep, exactly. The Charles Bridge, that was sort of the entryway into the magic. And it was sort of mind blowing, I gotta say.
I'm so happy because it's my favorite city here in Europe. So
Very cool. I love it.
yeah, we go to Prague quite often. Yeah, we love it. We
Wow.
just love it. And by the way, 2005, my wife and I, we got married in Prague.
Wow. That's amazing. I
Yeah,
didn't even
yeah.
know that. Look.
Yeah,
Wow.
we got married there. We fell in love with that city a long time ago.
Yeah.
And every year we go there to, sometimes during fall, sometimes before Christmas for, they have a nice Christmas market, by the way, by the Old Times Square, where you have the clock.
Yep. Yep.
It's quite nice. It gets crowded sometimes. But then when you go to Prague Castle up there, you have the cathedral, and then you walk down all the way to Old Town Square, and you cross the Charles Bridge. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
It's magic. Love it.
I can imagine. Wow.
Yeah. Most underrated country.
Most underrated country. It's one of two. It's either China or Afghanistan. But let me go with China on this one. I think China gets a bad rap for a lot of things, especially when it comes to Western cultures. And it's really because Western cultures do not really understand the Chinese ethos, the Chinese culture, maybe even the Chinese people and the Chinese food. It sort of bleeds throughout all of that. I think China is amazing in so many different ways, and I am a huge fan and proponent of the Chinese people, Chinese culture, Chinese food, and on and on and on.
Yeah. Agree with you. First time I visited China was in 2000. And yeah, last time was in November 2019, just prior COVID. We had a major event there, and I just love the country, the culture, the people. And I've seen China from 2000 all the way to 2019. The transformation was absolutely mind-blowing.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I love the people and the culture. And we were talking earlier about the sense of community. The Chinese, and especially during the Chinese New Year,
That's right.
where it's busy everywhere, airports, railways, and stations, and because people don't want to go back to their family and celebrate together. So yeah, I just love the country. Yeah,
Same
agree.
here.
Favorite music artist or band?
I have a lot here too, but let's see. I'll go in different maybe periods of time, but for 2000s, I'd say the Killers. For the 90s, I would say favorite singer songwriter is Elliott Smith. A little obscure, but he did the Good Will Hunting soundtrack, the movie. An amazing singer songwriter, and I cut my teeth in my youth on Nirvana, as did many people. That's what got me into, playing music and writing songs and picking up the guitar. And so big fan of Nirvana and Kurt Cobain and all that, but big music guy here.
Nice. Favorite hockey player growing up?
That's a great question. Wow. Kevin Dineen, number 20 on the Philadelphia Flyers. I took his number. I was number 20 throughout my time as a hockey player, and it was all because of Kevin Dineen, who is a bit of an obscure hockey player. It wasn't the fastest, wasn't the biggest, wasn't the best goal scorer, but he worked his ass off game in and game out, and I respected the crap out of that. And so number 20, Philadelphia Flyers, Kevin Dineen, favorite hockey player.
Right. Favorite soccer player during the FIFA 2026 World Cup?
I mean, that's a tough one for me as an American, but I love Messi.
Okay, two. Choose two.
Yeah, I'll choose. I love Messi. I think he's great. He's still got it. To me, the GOAT, and it's really always fun to watch him play. And he just has so much experience and so much skill. He sort of transcends age, and I love that in a sport. And I see that in hockey too. It's like as you grow in your experience, you're bringing so much more to the table that is hard to even describe. And I mean, I would say it's that and more with him.
So much wisdom, put it this way.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. One book that changed how you see the world.
I would say I'm going to do two. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Let's say that number one, because my dad gave me a copy of that book in college or right after college, right when I was graduating. I'm forgetting the exact time. And that reinforced a lot of my thoughts, but it also gave me a toolkit to build new leadership theory from, basically. And then I'd say the other book is Never Split the Difference, which many people know that book when I say that, but that was a new take on negotiation. In business school, for example, when I was at MIT, the prevailing theory was coming from the book Getting to Yes. That was the book's name, Getting to Yes. Now the prevailing theory is really never split the difference in that book. And I strongly recommend it. It's an amazing read. It's a fun read, and it will give you a toolkit from which to build your life and your negotiations henceforth starting today. It's a really, really great book.
Thanks for the tip. A leader you admire,
Leader I admire.
past or present?
Yeah. A leader I admire. I really admire my dad. And I admire him personally and professionally. As I mentioned, he's an entrepreneur in the tire industry. And I admire him for many reasons, but just to sort of sum it up, he's really an old school business person. One who cares about the relationship almost above anything else. You used to hear the customer is always right. That is very much a thing of the past. When you're talking about, building a company in today's day and age, unfortunately, it's like, how are we going to build this company and make money no matter what? But my dad is the person who says the only real way to make money and create a sustainable business is to really deeply care about your customers and provide them with something that they cannot get anywhere else. And I love, respect, and admire that perspective so much. And I try to do my part in implementing that as I engage in business as well.
Worst advice you hear often in business?
I would say that it's that anyone can build a company. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's really not for the faint of heart. I think it's a little bit dangerous that almost everyone promulgates the message that you should absolutely build a company or this or that. You can really hurt yourself if you deplete your savings and go all in on something and it just sort of goes sideways and peters out or something like that. So it's not for the faint of heart. I liken entrepreneurship to surgery. And, for example, not every person is going to be ready to engage in surgery. Before you do so, you better do the requisite work. You better study up. You better know what you're getting into. And only then will you be ready to perform surgery. And I would say the same is the case for entrepreneurship as well.
What do you hope your child says about you one day?
I feel like one of the best compliments is someone saying that this person was an interesting person. And so I hope my child someday says that I was an interesting person.
It's interesting. The way you talk about your father is really interesting. So shout out to your dad and to your mom, by the way. You spoke about her earlier.
And again, just in her own right, an amazing leader, did an amazing job raising my brother and me, and just great parents who set a great example for us growing up.
Fantastic. And last one, a piece of advice or a wisdom to our listeners on any topic.
Any topic. I mean, my big advice is, and I know I sound like a broken record, I said it earlier, but when someone gets in your way, go around them. And that's meant to be very positive advice, because I remember early in my entrepreneurship career, or even when I was applying to business schools, I remember people were like, "Why would you apply to MIT? You're not going to get in." I came from the Northeast Philadelphia general area, and a lot of friends and family said, "Why would you want to pay so much for business school? And you're probably not even going to get into it. Why don't you go to something more local or this or that?" It's like, that advice may be good for them, but it's probably not good for you. And so when people get in your way in any way, shape, or form, you should always look to go around them. You know what's right for you, and you're on your own life's path, and you should do what you feel is right throughout your life. And as I said earlier at the start of the call, it's like, be very open, and to my uncle's point, pay attention to what's going on around you. Be open to what people are asking you. And that may, if you say yes, lead you down very interesting and unique roads that you otherwise wouldn't have headed down.
Great. Phil Cohen, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insight with us. Thanks a lot.
Sid, this was so great. I had the best time. Really, really great time.
And before we leave, if you can tell our listeners what's the best way to connect with you or learn more about SimpliFiber and follow your work.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way would probably be LinkedIn. Very, let's keep it professional. No, I'm joking. But LinkedIn, you can also reach out via email. It's phil@simplifyber.com. I'm very interested in talking to people who are engaging in entrepreneurship, who may be looking for some advice, and always happy to help people out in the community. But thank you again for your time, Sid. This was a fantastic call. I had a blast.
You're welcome. And we're going to put all those links in our show notes. I would like to leave our listeners with a line from Theodore Roosevelt. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. And I think that fits perfectly today's conversation, because this episode was really about being in the arena, not just talking about change, but building it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Sid.
We want to thank you for joining our show. If you enjoyed this episode, we have more for you. You can now watch the entire episode on our YouTube and Spotify channels. While you're here, subscribe and don't forget to tap the bell. Visit prezerosportstalk.com to explore more conversations on sports, leadership, faith, performance, and innovation, from Sweden to the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and make a difference. We'll see you soon. Take care.